me okay? You can hear me at the back, Mother? Yes. Hi. Before I joined the Science Museum, which is an odd place to be if you're a medieval historian, I was at the Centre for Kent History and Heritage at Canterbury Christ Church University, which is where I started this project, Medieval Animals Heritage, and I'm still an affiliate of there. It's just now the project has come to an end, I felt the need for some money. You know how it is. So yes, Science Museum is huge fun. I'm not the only medievalist, and I'm having an absolute ball. So yeah, watch this space. Lots of more fun things coming out. So today I'm talking about this theme of lost and absence, the lost bestiary animals of Rochester. And here is isn't that a lovely photo of the? Can you see? Yeah, of the cathedral and the castle in the background. That wonderful Norman combination of power and spiritual authority. Yes, just making sure we all keep well and truly in our places. So here we have my talk today is going to be about a book that belonged to Rochester Cathedral Priory from the beginning of the 13th century, so about 800 years old. And what do I want to say about it? You can see I'm doing this without notes, can't you? What I want to say is that it is stunning and wonderful, deluxe, gorgeous. You are going to love it. There. What do I have to do? I'll point it somewhere. Oh, there we go. Yes, so Medieval Animals Heritage, Exploring Rochester Cathedral's Medieval Library. It's part of their Textus Refensis. Have you heard of Textus Refensis? Yeah, good. But for those who haven't, it's a book of customs and laws and rules put together by Gundulf. Do I have to tell my students that's not Gandalf all the time? At the beginning of the previous century, so the Textus Refensis is now celebrating its 900th birthday, but the bestiary is only a mere around about 800 years old. And I'm saying around about because the text was probably written before the Illuminations, so with a gap of maybe at least a decade or so. So, you know, don't hurry. What we were doing is holding 3 exhibitions to celebrate this book's 800th birthday, borrowing it, they didn't put a stamp in it or anything, borrowing it from the British Library, coming down to be where it was originally made in Rochester Cathedral. Probably illustrated by a team of professional artists who were doing the rounds of all the monasteries around London and the southeast. So, any questions so far? You all with me? Great. Let's. I'm not good at this, am I? What do I point it at? Oh, thank you. So here we are. This is a photograph of the books on display that were borrowed from the British Library. Here we have the Rochester Bestiary, Royal 12F30, that's a shelf mark. Here we have 12C7, and here's the, I know it looks like the Textus, but it was actually a 17th century copy by Elizabeth Elstob, who was an Anglo-Saxon scholar. And most unusually, as you can probably tell, a woman. So it was really nice to have something of the feminine, including these books here. So these are the ones that came down as the first tranche of celebration for the Rochester Medieval Library. And as you probably guessed, I'm a bit of a fan of the bestiary. So here we go. The Rochester Bestiary has 107 chapters on creatures, approximately 5-ish main sections, and it starts off, as is traditional in bestiaries, books of beasts, with the lion. Yes, and that's why the lion is king of the beasts, and it's not just Disney, it goes all the way back to mid-3rd century AD. So here we have the lion here, Isn't he glorious? And what he is doing is breathing life and hope into his stillborn cubs, which then come back to life after 3 days. Everything in the Bestiary takes 3 days because that's the amount of time that Christ spent on the cross. So here he is, breathing life with a roar over his cubs. You can imagine that, can't you? I'm not going to do my impersonation of a lion roaring. I shall spare you that. Very nearly didn't. This idea of breathing life and hope into children's lives became a theme of our project, our Medieval Animals Heritage Project. And down below we have something altogether different. This is a figure here of the unicorn being wounded by a man in chainmail. I think of it as, you know, chainmail will be worn as a mini dress this year, basically. In the text, I have to say, it never mentions that this female is naked. That doesn't come into the text at all. So I rather think maybe the artist took it into his head that would make a more interesting picture. But the unicorn is a figure for Christ, and the woman is the figure for the Virgin Mary. And Christ has to die, hence the importance of the hunter here, so that we can all be resurrected. This is the story of this particular drawing here and in the text underneath. So, do you know there's been a horrendous hack at the British Library? Did you hear about that? All the digitisations have gone. I was very lucky. I had somebody who had taken some decent photos, and I am using those, but they're not the whole pages, which is what I would normally be showing you. As you can see, some of these wild beasts you might think lion, tiger, leopard, panther, antelope. Unicorn, not so many around these days. Lynx, griffin, maybe not too many of those. They thought the elephant was really strange. It was described as a grey mountain. Yes, and therefore it seemed as more likely that unicorns would exist than elephants. The beaver, the ibex, the goat, the hyena, the bonacon. Anybody come across that? This is in Aristotle. It's the Eurasian bison. It has an unfortunate superpower, which I have to say every child on the project loved. It has a hot, wet fart. They thought it was magnificent, and I have to say medieval people thought it was hilarious too. All the rest of these are quite fine. The monoceros is this idea of coming in that the unicorn, yes, might actually be some form of rhinoceros. Starting, so they've put both in, yes. The lacrota is supposed to be a cross between a lion and another pard. Does not exist. The manticore, come across him? 3 rows of teeth in a scarlet tiger. Yeah, not one to meet on a dark night. The Parandrus is a form of deer, and so is the Yale. But the Yale has one curly horn and one straight one, which I just love. You know? And the wolf as well, okay? So you're getting to go, what's in these books now? Oh, thank you. Domestic animals. Well, I think you know all of these. Something went wrong with my lining up there, didn't it? But I love this here. These are the dogs guarding the home, and here they are as a hunting pack as well. There's also King Garamantes, who is rescued by his own hunting dogs, which is rather exciting. Other than domestic animals, I think it's rather odd the ant is included. Because I don't know about you, but I don't find them very domesticated. The idea of the cat in Latin, of course the whole Bestiary is written in Latin, I might have forgotten to mention that. The cat is mouser in Latin, the mouse is mouse or mus, and the weasel is mustela, which is long mouse, which I think is quite a nice way of thinking about that. Yeah? Shall I go on? Just too much of a list. Here are the birds. Oh, glorious, and many of them, because they included items from an aviary, a book of birds, which was written at the turn of the, mid-12th century, and it included lots of advice for men thinking of becoming monks, so for novices. And what we have here is a sort of start of the bird section with several different varieties of birds. And then we have the eagle, which stares into the sun to burn away the mistiness from its eyes, and then dives down into the river to stop its feathers from burning because it's thrown up so near to the sun. And there are some illustrations of that happening, and it looks exactly like a turkey. Ready for the dinner table. So, and here we have the vulture here, and you can see possibly here how they would have been drawing some of the fish. Here we are, the vulture known for plucking out the eyeballs of dead people. But I don't feel guilty about saying that, as we've just learnt what happens to, what was it? Waterloo sugar. Oh. So here we go, snakes and reptiles, and we start off with a tree. As you do, the Peridixian tree is a gigantic tree in the far, far east, and under it sits a dragon, unless it's the Aberdeen Bestiary, in which case there are two dragons because they've decided to go for symmetry. So a dragon, and in this enormous tree there are many birds, mostly doves, and if they leave the shelter of the tree, they're dragon lunch. You see, so you don't want to do that. So that's really part of an idea about the dragon. You have the asp, then we talk about the dragon again, then the basilisk, you know, the one with the fetching comb from, what was it, Feathers McGraw in Gromit, in Morrison Gromit? Yeah, that sort of rubber hat idea. And also attacked by the weasel. And I think, and I'm not alone in this, that people think this is probably a memory of many different tales coming together of the king cobra and the mongoose. Many of these other ones are tiny snakes. The amphispina is unusual as a snake because it has a head at the head and another head at the tail. So yes, a sort of push me pull you creature. And we have also the salamander, so toxic that even if it looks at a well, all the people will be poisoned. It's also fireproof, which is handy for it, I suppose. And here you can see this is the problem. Where are the images? From folio 50V onwards, no images. Which is a shame, isn't it? Because look at all these fabulous creatures here. So could we have the next one, please? Then we have, well, I call them mini beasts because they're worms and spiders and locusts and fleas, and then amphibians like toads and frogs, and then we go into the whole fish section, including the crocodile. Then we come on to trees and the nature of man and the parts of the human body. These two sections here, they're added on, they come straight from Isidore Etymologies, which was like a medieval Google. Yeah, if you wanted to know something, you looked in one of his, I think it was 29 books. Animals are book 12. So, can we have the next? Thank you. You are helping me so much. So, here we go. No images after folio 50. So, this is what a page would normally look like. That is gold background, gold leaf, hammered out by hand. So, quite chunky, I have to say. It's gloriously polished on pillows of the finest vellum. I think it must have had a bit of a clean-up job earlier in the last century because it's looking delicious. And here we have these different animals here. This is Adam naming the animals, which I chose just because you've got a number of animals there. So we've got a wonderful camel being ridden side saddle, a red lion and a blue lion, the deer and an ass also saddled, and I think that's a rabbit that's sort of floating above the ground, yeah. Shall we say it's hopping? Yes, we'll say it's hopping then. Then here we have what would be the Cynomologus, and the Herinicea. I think I've said that right. Cynomologus is a bird that lives in the cinnamon tree, and the Herinicea lives in the dark woods in German forests. And why it is so special is because it shines at night. I mean, it doesn't, but don't you want one now? Just such a wonderful idea. Could we have the next one? How am I doing for time? Am I all right? Great. So I popped up to the British Library, got my new card, got my letter of recommendation, passed through I don't know how many hoops because they're quite strict about us now, and I did get to see this, the Pantheologus, which is huge. It's basically, I was going to say something like a bus, but that's an exaggeration. But like this. Yeah, 60 lines to a page, you can see there, I counted them. And it's one of these sort of omnium bonum books where all is good, you know, it's putting everything in along the lines of Isidore's encyclopedia bent. Includes all these animals here. You can see there's the frog, yes, they're not in the same order. Here's the locust, here's the Herinacio, that's the one I was talking about, it glows in the dark. Here's the eagle, and here's the nest. So, and there's the dragon, and beyond that, the unicorn, yeah? All sorts of wonderful creatures, not in the same order as a traditional bestiary, and with a great deal of extra information gathered in. And this book was in Rochester, and we know that because it says here, yeah, Liber de Monasterio Refensis, and that says Alexander Praecenter admitted. Yeah? So he is, Alexander the Praecentor seems to have had his hand producing or organising to be produced various works and probably paying for them too. He's not the same as the prior, he's a different man. Can we have the next slide, please? So here's another way of thinking about what the creatures that aren't illustrated might have looked like. We're gathering more information on the background. Here's what I put together just as one page of this, a list of bestiary animals that are not illustrated with illustrations from the Aberdeen Bestiary, which is another fabulous book, which is still digitised, and you can go and look on it. Just type Aberdeen Bestiary into Google. It has a translation. Oh, it's gorgeous. And it has a full programme of illumination. Ended up in Aberdeen because the courtier was a friend of James VI. He got given it. So here we have the Amphisbaena. You can see I wasn't lying. There is a snake with 2 heads, and there's the evidence. Here we have the asp, again being told how to behave. And here we have the basilisk with the mongoose, the weasel on top of him. Isn't that a wonderful bat? Oh, I just love that. And in Latin, it's a vespitilio, so like vespers. And here we have bees also. Bees are honorary birds. I'm glad you knew that, yes. And here they are illustrated in the Aberdeen Bestiary as a cross between shuttlecocks and hand grenades. Yeah. Again, we have the boa here. Wonderful, wonderful shape. And we'll come back to that image again. And there's a caladrius. I love the caladrius bird. It's a beautiful white bird, and it flies down onto your bed when you are ill. And if it looks at you, you recover. If it doesn't look at you, oh dear. And here we have the Cynomologus. And there they are. Do you see this idea of symmetry is coming through in the Aberdeen Bestiary here? There's 2 people there trying to knock the bird out the tree because, you know, they do that. How am I doing for time? Okay. Here's another source of information which you can look at, and it's great. David Badker's really, it was a bit crunky, but David Badker's really put some time in it over COVID, and it's fabulous now. And you can look up the beast in Latin and English. You can look up the sources, bibliography, manuscripts, and a gallery. So here we have the Hercynia, which glows in the dark, yeah? Serves as a beacon because its feathers grow so brightly they light up the path. This is like a torch, basically, isn't it? But feathered. So there's a source there. Can we have the next slide? I haven't got many more. So there were 3 Beauty and the Beast exhibitions at Rochester Cathedral to celebrate the Rochester Bestiary and other books from the medieval library, which was a fantastic library. And among other things we did was put down 3-metre long banners in the nave, and there are 2 there. The bear, which licks its cubs into shape. So that idea about licking apprentices into shape, that comes from the bestiary. And here we have the panther, when it breathes out its sweet-smelling breath and it engages all the animals except the dragon, which runs away and hides. So he's just hiding away there. And I did say, if you've never seen a panther, you might not be entirely sure about, you know, is it stripy, is it spotty? So instead, what we have here is a feral baby grow panther, just to cover most of the bases. The other thing we're doing now is an exhibition, and this is for artists, with people with sight loss and artists with hearing loss who come together with Wendy Dawes and the Messroom team to do some fantastic artwork. And we asked them to consider doing animals from the Rochester Bestiary. So if I could have the next slide. I've got my slides in the wrong way around. This one is the school children we went to see, and they used the same with the Messroom as well. We're still working with Wendy Dawes. Can you see this sort of crinkly stuff here? This is sellotape. This is sellotape taken that thick from an enormous artwork in Chatham Dockyard a few years ago. You could actually climb inside it. If you remember, have you ever seen Lord of the Rings? Shelob's lair? That white, sticky, it's like that. You could climb inside. It was like being in a cocoon. It was out of miles of sellotape. So they offered this as a material for Wendy Dawes, who doesn't like waste. And we used it as part of our, caring for the environment, recycling materials and teaching the children to care as well. And it was that lovely idea of almost transparent creatures that they were designing for the lost animals in the pages of the Bestiary. If you see where I'm going with that. So here we have ideas of Cyclops manticore here. And can we have the next slide? This was a perindens tree with birds in it, and it's a phoenix, and that's Wendy Dawes there, the artist. I'll have the next slide as well. And can you see this here? This little leaf, gold leaf thing. Well, I don't know if any of you have been to Rochester Cathedral lately, but you could go and you could incise not a leaf but a scale and have it added on to this dragon, 168 feet long, I think 120 feet long, in 10 foot above the nave, and it's only just come down. So absolutely fantastic. And there we are celebrating the children's artwork in the Ithamar Chapel. Have the next slide. And here are our wonderful artists. This is one of my favourite things. It's an oyster. And here we have Nora's wonderful tapestry, yes, based on the boa. Can you see that? And she's given it this lovely fox's head as well, which is just fantastic. I say, going there and meeting everybody, you have to be very careful not to trip over the guide dogs, because they don't move out the way. And it was just a really wonderful way of celebrating and bringing people together. And Martin Crowther introduced the themes of the medieval animals to the artists, and then, wow, they did everything else. They were fantastic. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah, here we are, the end. I always think that's the best bit. So we have a fantastic blend of learning. Yes, there's a beautiful creativity of let's make it on our own. These are participant comments. These aren't my ideas, they're theirs. They cared, this is the children, cared of learning about history, which can be seen as dull and dry, not by me, but some people say that, and said it was exciting, it was fun, and they learnt. And they learnt all about not just the weird creatures, but also the ones that still exist as well, and how they're in danger and what we can do to help them. So it's really nice to see medieval history being made more accessible to people who maybe wouldn't have thought it was for them. And I'm going to say now, come to the dark side, come over to medieval history. We have cookies and everything. And I want to say thank you. Thank you to our amazing participants. That includes you, Peter, the National Lottery Fund, Rochester Cathedral, and the British Library. And to you too. Thank you so much for your attention.
I don't think the examples you've got with you are quite as beautiful as Rochester History, but you do have some.
Yes, I've got lots of things on the stand. If you want to come and have a look, there's a wonderful bestiary book with all sorts of creatures in. Yes, come and look. And I'm doing lasagna as well.
I do encourage you to go and have a look, because they really are beautiful illustrations. They genuinely are. Any questions for Diane? I said this. We'll start with Rob. Go on, Rob.
So the missing images, are there plans to rescan the original documents to replace the images in them
No.
Hello, could you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry.
Somebody-
Just asked if anybody's going to put the pictures in. Yeah, I do not think that the British Library thinks that's a cool thing to do. That's why we thought we'd do it instead.
What I'd like to know, where did they get the knowledge about all these animals in medieval times? Because people wouldn't have travelled the world then, the monks wouldn't have travelled, would they?
Thank you for your question. Where did they get the ideas from? Because the monks didn't travel. Well, they did. They got out all the time. It was the nuns who never got out. So, unless you're the prioress in Chaucer's.
They wouldn't have gone to Africa, places like that.
Sometimes. A lot of the information from the Bestiary comes from another book called the Physiologus. And this was written around about the mid-2nd century AD, near Alexandria, probably by a group of desert fathers, the earliest monks, earliest Christian monks. And all those, I think I did a figure, 66% of the earliest form of bestiary has creatures from the Near East and North Africa, and they would have known them. But when it gets translated into Latin from the Greek original and makes its way to probably Monte Cassino in Italy, one of the earliest monasteries, quite a few people had no idea what these creatures looked like. The lion was always quite well known. I mean, the Atlas Mountains are only just across, from Gibraltar. But lots of people did not know what creatures looked like, and they were basing their drawings on description. Always a dangerous thing to do. Can I give you one example? There's a crocodile, okay? I know you've got in your mind now what a crocodile looks like. So, it says the crocodile keeps its lower jaw still and only moves its upper jaw. Yeah? See where I'm coming from? Forgets to mention anywhere the crocodile has a long snout. What are you supposed to do? How's it going to... That's just not going to work, is it? So the artist in what I believe is a Canterbury Bestiary, and it's Oxford Bodleian Lord Miscellaneous 247, catchy, I feel, catchy. He turned the head of the crocodile upside down. So now the jaw goes up and down. It wouldn't have worked, I believe, but it was a nice idea. Does that answer your question? And then more and more European animals make an appearance because they know what those look like. Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, just here for the last question, please.
Why were hedgehogs seen as heretics and thieves?
Oh, thank you. I love this question. I love the hedgehog. It was part, as you can see, of our logo. Heretics, yes, definitely, and thieves too. I want you to be careful about hedgehogs from now on, in case they lead you astray. The hedgehog stole grapes from the Lord's vineyard by rolling the grapes onto their prickles and taking them away to feed to their hoglets. And this was frowned upon. And they also went dancing around Babylon with sirens and wild asses. So that just goes to show the sort of company they keep. That's in Isaiah. So that's what. Does that answer your question? And I don't believe it for a minute. I think they would have been forgiven feeding their own children. So.
Brilliant. Thank you, Diane.